of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold him!
Alrighty, good evening ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another live edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host John, also known as 4020, joining me post-Christmas after hopefully a fantastic day there. If his family is my good mate Sixties, also known as Craig, big fella. Like you always like to say, it's 52 weeks a year for TCT and the Tip Sheet Podcast, and here we are with just a day to New Year's Eve. So it's another Eve's podcast. We had the Christmas Eve podcast, and we've got the New Year's Eve podcast, or the New Rules Eve podcast, as we're going with today, with the NRL throwing a quartet of rule changes to the clubs and the RLPA for some sort of accord ahead of the season 2026. And we're going to talk about that in depth. We're going to talk about the Parramatta Eels, some unfortunate news across the Christmas break, mate. The St. George Illawarra Dragons got into both the Eels and the Rabbitohs guards as the long shot favourites to, or the long odd favourites to sign Keon Koloamatangi, but managed to put what must be said is an irresistible package on the table, looks like. But we'll talk all about that and more. As always, though, quick check-in on you, quick check-in on chat. Thank you to everyone that is joining us on Tuesday, the 30th of December.
Yes, mate. Good to see you, and hopefully it's a good New Year's Eve for yourself and all of our listeners / viewers / TCT community / Eels supporters.
All the slashes.
Mate, tomorrow night, speaking of Eels supporters, I've decided to go with a little bit of nostalgia to see in the new year. Going up to Castle RSL to see the Countdown show, which is being staged by Paul Field, formerly of the Cockroaches, and he's a massive Eels supporter, is Paul. Looking forward to that. It's all the music of the Countdown era. Heading up there with Yoko and old high school mate of mine, Dave, and his wife, Cheryl, and it should be interesting for her. She actually grew up in England, Cheryl. So this is all the Australian music of the of that Countdown era.
It's actually before I was born, so I only ever saw reruns of Countdown. I never saw it live. But yeah, an icon of the Aussie TV / music industries, wasn't it?
Yeah. So looking forward to that, and hopefully grab a photo with Paul either before or after the show. But yeah, looking forward to that as a way of seeing in the new year. And look, we've got a big show tonight in terms of what we've got to discuss, especially around these rule changes. So let's get into our usual acknowledgements. And first of all, a shout out to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. And of course, the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club, where you'll be welcomed every night of the year, but especially so on match days. It's really the place to be when the Eels are at home, and it's been our home for the last 5-6 years, John, on match days, and we're looking forward to that continuing in 2026. Also, no matter what platform that you're watching or listening to this on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that helps with all of the algorithm that will help to get out our content to lots of Eel supporters. So without further ado, mate, let's hit that stinger.
By the way, Michello is challenging you, saying that Paul's a Tigers fan, he thinks. So we have to get some clarity on that from you.
No, it's Anthony Field is the Tigers fan.
There you go, Anthony Field, yes.
It's his brother who's the Wiggle.
Anthony's the idiot in the family, clearly.
Yes. No, Paul's a Eels fan.
Good stuff, mate. All right, take it away from the top for us.
Okay, well, look, before we go any further, we've got to plug our podcasts that we've done recently. So if you haven't as yet caught the podcast with Mark O'Neill or with the Lees Club directors, Richard Foda and Darren Adam. Please make sure that you do. You haven't got the excuse of not having time to do it over Christmas and New Year. And it really does get you up to date with what's happening across Paradise and really the Parramatta group, the Parra group, because everything that's going on in terms of developments at Kellyville, developments at Parramatta, expanding the club group into Pitt Town in the near future, all of that impacts the future of the Eels as well. Just makes the whole group stronger. So get up to date with that, have a listen to the podcasts and know what's going on. And John, let's start off with the confirmation of the news that had got out the previous week. And
the day after the Bears
confirmation,
confirmed,
confirmation came the day after our last podcast.
I mean, we were treating it as if it was gospel, but we did say, it's still a media report. So who knows, maybe there is something left to dispel against it. But no, literally the next morning after our podcast, the Bears came out and confirmed official press release. Sean Russell, it bolsters their backline on a 4-year deal. Still haven't seen financials on this one, Craig. You got to imagine it's a pretty. Sorry, someone going very aggressive in the back streets there. A very handsome deal. But like we said in that podcast, you really can't begrudge Sean Russell getting essentially a life-changing deal. And it sucks that it comes at our expense after a big breakout year for Sean, but the Bears get themselves a very handy piece in the back line and a player that won't let them down.
Yeah, look, it's quite incredible how someone's career can turn around in 12 months. Now, it's not like Sean's career wasn't heading in a good direction before last year, but you did mention it was really a breakout year last year. And what we mean by that is that Sean went from probably a player that would do a good job every time he played first grade to being a regular starter and a valued member, a highly valued member of Jason Ryle's run-on team. And in a season where we weren't sure what was going to happen around centre and where Bailey Simonson had a long-term injury, having Sean step up and go up, I'd argue, a couple of levels in his performances last year was critical for an Eels team that was looking to build in 2025. Now, as you said, the unfortunate thing is that with Sean having such a breakout year, that of course he ends up on the radar of other clubs, and we just couldn't match the offer that a new franchise club was coming in with. Now that's understandable because the Perth Bears, they have to make signings. They're going to have to come in with above market value offers for players that they consider to be first grade players. Now, if I look at the signings that they've made so far, would I consider that any of those signings are going to move the needle for them as a club? No, not as yet. Not as yet. And I would say that Sean's probably one of the best signings that they've made.
Yeah.
If not the best signing that they've made so far. They have to hit the spine with their signings. Unless they start to...
Yeah, I agree. Sexton doesn't feel like a long-term solution for him. He's going to be a guy that can do a job for a couple of years, but they still, as we mentioned, when we discussed, I don't know if it was the last podcast or the podcast before, that they haven't found their cornerstone player or two to build around. They just haven't got their, obviously not going to get a Mitchell Moses, but they haven't found their Mitchell Moses light to be the guy to compose their entire squad around and build their identity around. So it's going to really be the problem for the Bears in the early years, and also for PNG, when they come in after the Bears. Can they find a cornerstone player or two to build around? And it's always tough for franchises in the NRL because it's not like they do expansion drafts or do allow for the expansion teams to attack contracted players with some protections for existing clubs, which is what you see in American sports often. But yeah, you got to build from the ground up, and it's tough. So yeah, it does suck to lose Sean Russell. Puts a hole in the Parramatta backline. We've talked about Brian Kelly as a potential replacement that we're sort of expecting to maybe be ratified early in the new year, Craig. We're hoping to see another maybe addition to the backline sometime in the preseason. But yeah, Sean Russell moves on to the Perth Bears. Really good get for them. But that's not the only recruitment news. I mentioned it in the lead-in, mate, but the Eels have missed out on their marquee man, the player they were targeting from South Sydney in Keon Koloamatangi. It broke on, was it Christmas Eve? I think the story came out. That are the St. George Illawarra Dragons, who were the long shots. Like they were not seen as the competitive option outside of South Sydney there, opposite of Parramatta. But they came in, 5-year deal, maybe it's hard to get numbers, but maybe in excess of $5.5 million. It's a big deal. And we talked about.
I think it'll have a ratchet clause in there.
Yeah, we talked about the significance of that 5th year that was on the table, rumored to be on the table from the Dragons, and if the Eels were going to match it. And by the reports I've seen, the Eels weren't willing to go to the 5th year there, Craig. They dug their heels in and said, this is our limit, 4 years. I don't know if you've heard separate, but that was what the reports in the media suggested. And in doing so, it looks like Keon has, it was good. It was also excellent money from the Eels, but from our perspective, and we are biased, but it does look like he has taken the least competitive opportunity, I suppose. Dragons got good young forwards coming through, but their team has got a lot of imbalances in it. So how fast can Flanagan rebuild those other issues or rebuild around those other issues and get the squad back to being a balanced competitive unit? I don't know. But he's landed Keon, and that's going to be their marquee man in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were all stunned with that announcement. We were probably 60-70% expecting him to stay with Souths. I mean, the big news that had come out prior to that was that he'd agreed to stay at the Rabbitohs, and my mail at that stage was, that's pretty hopeful from the Rabbitohs. It may turn out to be the case, but they're beating their chest a bit early. The Eels feel they're still in the game, but as it turned out, that third competitor in the market for him swooped in with that big offer. He's gone for the biggest money on offer. I believe South also balked at that 5th year and ratchet clause. So in some sense, the news about Sean Russell and the news about Keon Koloamatangi feels like a double blow around the Christmas time for the Eels, because we've lost a local product who was just starting to find his mark in the NRL, and then we followed that up, and that's in a position where we're a bit thin on troops, to be fair, in the outside backs, and then on top of that, we miss our main target, the player that we were virtually going all in on, and felt that our offer was right up there. So it does feel like a bit of a double blow. And look, naturally, John, I've just been inundated by people saying, look, this isn't good enough. We're losing players. We're not signing any sort of names at this stage. Look, for mine, I say make your final judgment when the roster is finalised. Yeah, it's disappointing to miss out on players, but hey, there's lots of other clubs who'll miss out on players that they target. Let's face it, the Rabbitohs should have been able to keep him. They were the incumbent club. He had a level of loyalty. I'd be more concerned about being the Rabbitohs and losing a player that wanted to be a one-club player than I would being one of the clubs competing to lure him away, missing out. I'm not saying that, I'm disappointed that we lost him, but the sky isn't falling based on us not being able to recruit Keon Koloamatangi. Why? Because I think our recruitment needs fall stronger in the outside backs than they do in the forwards. I want us to focus on getting those that roster filled out and getting it filled out where we need players. I had a team list post that went up just before Christmas, and we talked about it the last podcast. One of our readers posted up his New South Wales Cup team, and he couldn't find a place for some of the play. Like, he couldn't find a place for Tony Matteelli in his starting New South Wales Cup team, and Tony made his NRL debut last year. He had him coming off the bench for New South Wales Cup. I look at that and I go, you know what? There's a lot of competition for places in the forwards. Once we go beyond the first starters, the first choice with the outside backs, we've got relative novices that we'd have to select at this stage. We need those outside backs, John. Now, if it turns out that one of those is Brian Kelly, and all indications are that we'll hear something about that very soon in the new year, then I think he's a solid signing. Is he a replacement for Zach Lomax? No. And I think the Eels made it patently clear they weren't looking to sign a replacement for Zach Lomax per se. They weren't trying to find someone in his calibre to replace him. They made that decision. They were going to spend the money in a different way in chasing Keon Koloamatangi. Now, in not getting Keon Koloamatangi, does that change the landscape, do you think, for the outside backs, John? Because are there any outside backs that are game changers? I had a look at a list the other day of available outside backs, and you know what? There's no one there that I thought was a game changer.
Well, it'd be Murray Talangi would be the closest thing, representative winger.
That'd be the closest thing.
And
right?
Interestingly, he was the player that was linked to the Dragons. That's on your end now, I think, is it?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
We've both got the Hoons going out tonight. So, yeah, look, maybe there's going to be interest in Murray Talangi, redirect some of the funds there, but some of it hasn't been directly from the club, but there has been some stuff trickling out via not certain media things, but there's been some talk in the media here and there about with Lomax's contract off the books, the Eels have a more balanced way to reapply that, salary cap distribution across positional groups. So would they want to reinvest significant money into Murray Talangi on the wing? Maybe. I don't know. It's look, I was just being in chat. Recruitment's always a very galvanizing, energizing topic. We've got a lot of strong comments. Some people critical of us for not going in on Mark O'Neill in our recent chat. I would like to point out that Keon Koloamatangi was still in negotiations when we recorded with Mark O'Neill. But also, a little bit of common sense there too, guys. Like, we are not credentialed press. We don't get the opportunity to grill the club and see them every presser every week and put them on the hotspot there. We get some privileged access, which, using common sense, it does filter some of the questions there. But there are people that are critical of O'Neill, critical of Ben Rogers. I understand the frustrations. I will frame this here. You're not wrong about being critical, Craig, those people there. The Eels have missed out on a number of big signings now, but we have turned, when one door is closed, another door's open. That's just literally how it works in the NRL. We missed out on Lachlan Galvin, got Talon De Silva. We've missed out on Keon Koloamatangi, who comes our way now, maybe, that we wouldn't have expected. And at the end of the day, signing or not signing a star player is secondary. What happens at the end of the day is the results on the field. And if the Eels find a way to get to the finals, to get to the grand final, to get to a premiership by finding value guys, by finding mid-season acquisitions instead of the big flash you pick up in Keon Koloamatangi, then that's where I think you judge. And like I said, you can be critical that we've missed out on big signings once or twice now. Maybe, was there a third one before I'm missing? The big ones stand out to me is Galvin and Koloamatangi here. But if the Eels can find another path to being a top-tier team, then so be it. So I understand being critical now, but you sort of judge the product on the balance of things later. And the Eels unearthed tremendous value in 25 in the likes of Papali, Kartonga, Semrani, all those players there. And I don't know, maybe they'll find a way to do it again. But yeah, it does sting to miss out on Keon. So I understand people getting aggressive. No, Warren, look, I know you weren't, you weren't really attacking, but there have been people on the blog that have been critical, and certainly across socials, there's a lot of fired up fans. I know you weren't trying to take the piss out of us like that, but it's just how it is. And like I said, I equally understand there's been some, no one's crossed the line or anything like that, but there's been some critical comments of the recruitment team in there, and I understand. It is frustrating to be on the wrong side of this equation again. But just like how we missed out on Galvin and turned it into Talon de Silva, which isn't a one-for-one positional thing there. We went to a different positional need and got a young player there. Maybe this Keon miss turns out to be, I'm not saying a blessing in disguise, but opens a different kind of door for the Parramatta Eels, and we'll have to wait and see there.
Yeah, look, it's we don't have a problem with people being critical of what happens with the Eels, and we don't have a problem with people being critical of what we do, but also understand that in this instance where we are doing our sit downs, our catch ups with different people within the club, we're not 60 minutes sitting them down and grilling them and saying what's happening with this or what's happening with that. We go through questions that we're going to ask, and as John alluded to in the last podcast, I tried firing in a sneaky question or two about whether we could get any
went straight for the keeper
names or anything like that. What we have to understand is that I don't think there was a single Eels fan who was disappointed in the fact that the negotiations with Isaiah Iongi were kept under wraps, and it was a surprise. His extension, that announcement came out of the blue for everyone, and everyone was like super impressed with the fact that the deal got done, and it wasn't played out in the media. This is basically how things get done by the club, where they work on it quietly. They don't want to get media involved. They don't want leaks coming out about what's happening with players. You're not going to anyone that gets mail on things. What you will find is the majority of the time the mail will come from an incumbent club. It might come from the player's agent. It might come from friends or family of the players. There's very little that's leaking out of the Eels as such, if at all. So we certainly don't get privileged information when it comes to any of these sorts of signings that are going on. About as close as it might be if there's something that's being heavily rumoured in the papers. We might chase it up and say, is there anything to it? And we might get an answer like, well, of course we'd be interested in player X, and that's about as much as it would go. So John, just moving on, but I'd like you to wrap this up. No, does it bother you that we missed out on Keon Koloamatangi, and what are you expecting the Eels to do from now on, from here on, to focus on those outside backs?
Yeah, look, Warren in chat pretty much raised a fair point about it, saying that it's a concern that we haven't been able to close the deal on our two last marquee targets in Galvin and Koloamatangi. We got pipped by the Bulldogs, obviously, for Galvin, and then the Bulldogs I could understand because they had the attractiveness of being form team, premiership contender. Even if the positional fit wasn't perfect, there was a Vella, the junior coach, was there as well. So there was like a lot of gears in there. Losing out to the Dragons stinks because it feels like it was a pure monetary or extra year in the deal sort of situation. The Eels weren't able to offset that with their football vision, which you'd hope would be able to be the difference maker in those situations. So I agree there are some concerns about the Eels' ability to close the deal. Like I said, I will fully evaluate this based on what they can now do, which is what you sort of led me into with the question. I don't know. it's a real tricky one because you've got some young kids you can choose to invest in, which the club are doing their best to lock up and have done a very good job of locking up in the players that we've seen in your preseason reports and beyond. But where do you invest? Is it the wing to find the Lomax fixer upper there, 5'8"? We've got a couple of young guys that we're very bullish on via the club's words as much as ours. So, yeah, I don't know. Are you just opportunistic and wait and see what's on the market?
Yeah.
I don't think... I mean, some people have talked about in chat saying, do we overpay for Tino? That's an option. I think that's an option. But, I think between Perth and Melbourne, you've got one franchise that can throw unprecedented money at Tino and another that has a very strong connection to him, stronger than what the Eels have with Riles, that are also clearing deck to maybe make a mega deal or mega offer to Tino. At least that's how it reads of what the Storm are doing. I think it's not the sexy option, but the correct option here is to stay the course, focus on re-upping internal talent to good deals, like maybe getting ahead of the market and their ability to perform and then raise their value, and then waiting to see who can come on. What opportunities are there going to be there with a struggling club or a disgruntled star, or something that happens, one team makes a big signing and need to force out another player? I don't know. I don't think there is some sort of prescient option I can throw to you, Craig, right now. It just feels like the Eels need to play a bit of heads-up football, heads-up recruitment, and wait and see what the market brings to them.
Yeah, look, the thing with Koloamatangi was that was a 2027 signing. So let's have that in the perspective for now as well, because that's where he's heading. That's when he's heading to the Dragons at this stage, 2027. Right? Now, he had been targeted by the Eels, not just because he's a good player and really went into the next echelon of players in 2025, but in the long term at the Eels, he was seen as a leader in succession from Junior Paulo. And that was going to be a big part of his value to the club. So the club was really looking ahead to the future in targeting someone like him. So they've missed out on him. As I said, as far as I'm concerned, they've still got 12 months to come up with another target for that. I mean, I say 12 months, you'd want them to be moving on it as quickly as possible. But he was out there fielding offers now, so that's why they moved into the market to sign him right now. But they need to look at the longer term. Junior, he's probably going to start signing on a year-to-year basis, whether he's got another 2 years left in him, 3 years, whatever the case may be. He's closer to the end of his career than he is to the start. So they're looking, who's the next one to step up? Well, it's not going to be Jack de Belin, because Jack de Belin's an elder statesman himself. So they need that forward with the experience, that hard head, the one that's got that leadership quality about him to guide the younger players around the park. And they targeted Keon for that. So, John, I think one of the toughest things as far as the recruitment is concerned right now is that there's so much that is now unknown in the player market. The players that drop out, that come onto the market that are unexpected. Something goes on at their club or something starts a chain reaction across the NRL and it shakes players loose. That's why I said I'm more concerned with the immediate future right now, which is 2026, and who we get to finalise our roster for next season, for this upcoming season. That's my first and foremost. We need immediately 1 to 2 players by January, by the first round. And I say 1 to 2 because we need one to take us up to the 28 players, which is the minimum requirement, we don't know what is going to happen with Ryan Madison. That's as blunt as we can be. There's been plenty of information out there in the media that I'm sure has come from Ryan's agent about how things are, and it's all been settled with the club and he's moving forward, that sort of thing. I would still suggest to people that if a new home was found for Ryan, that would happen. The Eels wouldn't stand in his way. I hadn't even considered, and I don't even know if the person that put in the New South Wales Cup team list, whether he included Maddo, I can't even remember. But I wouldn't even be putting Maddo into my team list. That's how unsure I am as to whether he's going to actually start the season. So, so let's move from there into actually confirming the Eels team list. Now, I say confirming the squad lists, because I'm seeing all sorts of variations on who's in the top 30, who's the train and trialers, who's in the supplementary or development list. And I thought I'd try to clarify things for people as best I could. Now, what I will start off with is the top 30. John, I've got it down as 27 players at the moment. There's different places that you might read, different websites, different football accounts have the Eels at either 26, 27 or 28 players. What I can confirm is that Jake Tungor is in the top 30, which takes us to 27, including Ryan Madison. So the players that are in that top 30 outside of Jake Tungor, that's pretty easy to find. I'm not going to go through the list right now, but that's what you're looking at for the top 30 for the Eels. All right. When it comes to the development list, I've got down 5 players on the development list for the Eels, and that's Josiah Funaiuta, Lincoln Fletcher, Will Latu, Lorenzo Teletaina, and Saxon Pryke. So I have the Eels down as having 5 supplementary list or development contract players. As Mark explained to us, we can have up to 6 players. But the minimum was, just like there's a minimum for round 1 with the top 30, the minimum for round 1 is 4 players. So the Eels have already covered that base. If they want to add a 6th player, they can do that. Now, the train and trial, I've got it down as these players being either 42-week or a full NRL pre-season, right? So these are the players that are either 42 weeks or the full pre-season. Moe Alamadine, Araz Nanva, Tiankan Brown, Tyrese Lakini, Arpa Twiddle, Ryder Talangi. So they're the players that I've got listed for the
dev list?
Not the dev list.
Oh, the second tier list, the train trial.
Train and trial.
Yeah.
Full-time training. Now, whether 1 or 2 of those finish up at the end of the NRL pre-season, I guess remains to be seen. I'm pretty sure that Araz and Tyrese and Arpa are definitely doing a full 42 weeks. I've just got a question mark on whether Moe, Tiankum and Ryder are doing just an NRL pre-season similar to Riley Smith. But as we recall last year, Riley was down for just the NRL pre-season, but he then upgraded to full-time contract and then ended up with a top 30 deal. What happens with these players, it wouldn't surprise me if they stay on as 42 weeks players, because their role during the year as well is to provide that a full squad there for training through the year, that you get full opposed sessions. That and for some of those players, especially the outside backs, it's not like there's a full squad of outside backs there to be able to provide that sort of balance in opposed sessions during the season. So we wait and see what happens there. But hopefully that clears up any of the uncertainty that people might have around the top 30, the supplementary list, and the train and trialers. John, any questions there from our gallery?
Joel was asking about squad list for the Harold Matson SG Ball. I thought I had one lying around because I thought I saw one announced, maybe not on the main channel by the Eels, but maybe one of their junior rep channels, but can't seem to find one. I'll keep looking for it, Joel. I know you responded to me in chat, but I just so you know, I'll keep looking, see if I can find it for you, mate. But
well, they haven't finalised.
No, but they do announce summer squads, the extended summer squads. So there's one lying around somewhere. I'll see if I can find it for you, mate.
You know what? I can't remember seeing Eels Media putting out a summer squad list.
It might have been on one of the Parra Eels junior channels. They've got the Parra Eels socials for the juniors. So I'll have a poke around and see what I can find there. I mean, I know some of the players there, but I just want to confirm that it's at least an official capacity before we start talking about them. There's some people, bit of frustration with the lack of success going on 40 years here for the Eels. We get that, guys. I am literally one of the people that was born without a premiership. So, you know, you are preaching to the choir here. What else we got here? Oh, there was a question from Patrick, which I thought was a fair one. In terms of that extra back we've been talking about, Craig, if we are assuming that Brian Kelly is to be added to our top 30, are you looking for an experienced option, or take a more of a shot on a young, hungry guy? I don't know if there's an equivalent of Sevilio Tamalas just lying around to be recruited, but given the option, would you target an experienced option or go for?
That's my first option, would be experience. I think we can't afford to go in without experience at the moment. Now, if you're talking about a young gun that's looking for an opportunity, well, I would have thought that maybe they might be on the radar for next season, for 2027 moving forward. As I said, for mine, I think we've got enough players there below that level who are what you'd classify as rookies, and I'm talking about the likes of Richie Penasini and Araz Nanva, who might be champing at the bit to get an NRL debut. So unless you found someone who was an absolute gun, I mean a mind-blowing sort of gun, I'm looking for blokes that are quality NRL experienced players, not necessarily elite, but quality. I mean, we've got a hole that has to be filled anyway for 2027 now with Sean Russell moving on. So we have to be thinking about who is going to be playing in the centres then. We're yet to see how Bailey will hold up this season. Will he have an ongoing run of injuries? And if that's the case, then we need someone who's needs to be ready to step up. Should we be throwing in someone like Richie Penasini or Raz Nanva into that mix right now? I think it's too early. I think you have to be looking at the timing has to be right for those sorts of players.
Yeah,
not just they're playing because they have to. You'd like to be something where the coaches can be planning around their introduction. So Any
a few more questions. We've got throwing out there sort of what sort of value are we expecting to sign someone like Brian Kelly on, Craig. I see chat offering 300, 400. Where do you think his value falls to the Parramatta Eels?
Kelly, surely, I don't think he's a $400,000 player, John. I would see him as being around that 300,000 mark, because at the moment you'd be signing him to say, we've got incumbents there. Your job's to get them out. So you'd literally be signing them without a guarantee of first grade. Now, for someone like Kelly, I see his value in that he is an experienced NRL player and would want to be playing NRL. So he'd come in and offer immediate competition for the incumbents. If you had him playing the first couple of weeks and was playing out of his skin in New South Wales Cup, and one of the centres wasn't measuring up, be it Will Penasini or Sean Russell, you'd like to think that Jason Riles would look at that and go, you know what, let's not muck around. We got someone there that I've brought in for a reason. He's getting the job done at the moment, so I'll select him.
Could the Eels double dip from the Gold Coast? Philip Sammy's a name I see in chat. I think JJ was the first one to mention it. Sammy's terrorised the Eels in the past. He's a pretty handy player.
Yeah.
Could you go for the 2-for-1 package?
No, I don't know if I'd go two for one, but would I be talking to him? Yeah, I would, because he fits that bill of being an experienced NRL player who possesses pace. Like that. That's one of the qualities that I'm looking for. It's why I've talked about Tyrell Sloan in the past. I will keep banging on about it, John. As far as I'm concerned, if the club's not talking to Tyrell Sloan, I think they've made a mistake.
Avarillo, aka Alvaro, as Josh said, yeah, another player I think would be a fantastic pickup. You can lock him into a centre position. He gives you coverage across 1 to 6.
Yes.
You'd not find me complaining whatsoever about the acquisition of Avarillo. And I saw Josh had another comment before. Josh, I thought was pretty relevant, mate. Sort of advocating for a bit of calm, because 27, to echo what you said, Craig, 27 is a long way away still, a lot of time to do recruitment. The other thing too is there's a lot of time for development. Eels, you've mentioned some of the players there, but you're talking about guys like Rabbitohs and Tiankin Brown and Josiah Funayuta, Chris Petrus, Cameron Bamblet. Like there's players that could come relatively from the cloud still for the Eels internally. So yeah, there are certainly balancing factors internally as much as externally. So yes, there is an element of calmness still, and got to remember we're coming off a free win streak at the end of the year. We were building nicely. There's a lot of football to be played. So yes, Josh, with the at least echoing what I feel is right. Like, not to say you can't be annoyed or frustrated in our situation missing out on Keon, but Eels. The way I look at it now is you're sort of playing with house money, which I know is not true to the whole picture, but Jason Riles was able to get the results he got this year, and it still is this year barely. With the squad we currently have, they've got a lot of room to grow to, and internally there's still guys to come through and make a difference. So yeah, I am keen to see.
I should also mention really that because you touched on the younger players that are there at the club, and I haven't spoken about them as first grade options for this year, because there's a lot of development that needs to occur. But Arpa Twiddle had a good year last year.
Yeah, he's a guy that could be in the frame. And
he could be in the frame. I would say that young Moe Alameddine has been benefiting greatly from the NRL
exposure to an NRL preseason. Yeah, there are players that can absolutely come out of that making huge strides. So yeah, internally there are very much factors at play here.
And also mention as well that Jordan Samrani's trained the preseason as an outside back. So he's trained at centre. He's trained on the wing. He basically hasn't done any training that I've noticed where he's been in the back row.
Interesting.
And that might simply be a factor of the numbers, that they've needed the numbers in the outside backs to be able to run certain types of drills. So it could be a factor of that. But he's really that hybrid player who you could almost, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, he might be someone who ends up being a lock-in.
There is a NRL segment thing that we're going to talk about in relation to Parramatta that is very relevant for a couple of players. Joash and Jordan really come to mind here. A couple more questions before we go to the intermission music, guys. Andrew, I mean, it's a fair question, mate. He says, I don't get why we can't land our guys. New COE, obviously the centre of excellence there. Huge fan base, young, hungry coach in Rolesy. What do you guys think the issue is? I sort of touched on it very quickly before. With the Galvin situation, Craig, I see it as just the perfect storm for the Bulldogs to come in. They were top of the table premiership, like almost favourites at the time where they came in for him. Had the junior coach in Vela over in their system there. Gould came in and promised the world to young Galvin. Got under the guard there. That situation was what it was. That's why I wasn't too frustrated there. This one hurts a bit more. I feel like the Eels were a much better sell than the Dragons. So if it's really just come down to the fifth year and the extra dollars, then maybe there is a problem with the vision that they're selling to the players, which is really hard to convey, because the positive PR about Jason Ryles across the code, it's not just our blue and gold goggles that are sort of lifting it up. If you listen to the way the commentators spoke about Ryles, the way the other, like the mainstream podcast, not our mum and pop shop podcast, but like the actual Matt Johns podcast and that sort of caliber of podcast, the way they spoke about Ryles, the hype is real. So yeah, I'm if the disconnect is just money, it is what it is. It does suck, but maybe there is an issue there. I'm not sure. I don't have the information to give you a proper answer on that one, because I'm not privy to what our sales process is or our sales pitch is.
John, we over the years we've sort of had a little bit of an inkling about some of the sales pitch that goes to the players. You mentioned the selling points about the club, the centre of excellence. It's their home stadium, the fan base, the financial security of the club, the growing reputation of Jason Ryles, the fact that the Eels were a team on the rise last year, playing an exciting brand of football. And it's not just that. We spoke with Mark O'Neill about this, the Eels being ranked right up at the top of the NRL by the RLPA, with players ranking things like the wellbeing program at the Eels, how they're looked after. Now, this is the sort of thing that the community of players talk about. Like that, word gets around, what's it like playing at the Eels? And there's only been positive stuff that's been said by players at the Eels. And so you have to think, well, as you said, why aren't deals being closed? Well, you know what? What we've seen in the last 2 years is the power of the coin. Because look at Dylan Brown, right? We had a player who declared he's not going anywhere. He's not interested in going anywhere. And lo and behold, there's a 10-year offer at $1.4 million a year. Well, you know what? There is a price. There is a price that will buy someone's services, even someone who's as loyal and as uninterested in moving as Dylan Brown was. It's just money does talk. And in this instance, you've got Keon Koloamatangi, who every step of the way, my mail was, look, it's going to take a lot to get him out of South. It'll take a lot to get him out of South. He's very, very loyal. You have to offer a lot more than what Souths are. And apparently that's what Parramatta stepped in to do. And then St. George have just come forward and just gone that step further. So I guess Parramatta weren't getting into a bidding war with St. George, So I'd turn the question around and I'd say to people, would you want the club to get into a bidding war with a club that's obviously desperate to get to land?
It's tough because like there is definitely the sentiment where, or the sort of thought process where if he's your guy, you go get him. But then the opposite of that is that you can absolutely overspend. It's like when your dream house is there, your forever home, and someone just keeps squeezing you another 50K, another 25K, another 10K. Like at some point you're just getting yourself into a hole. So yeah, again, not privy to all the financials, not privy to the sales pitch fully, Craig. We've in the past we've been able to get some information there, but certainly you're far more connected than I am. Jamie saying maybe could have offered the 5th year as a club option. Yeah, well, that could have been on the table, but if he got an absolute 5th year from the Dragons, which looks to be the case, then that's worth a lot more to him. I'm sure more details will sort of trickle in as we hit the new year and the deal becomes ratified. There was the other thing too was South refusing to waive the calling off period but not offering him a new deal. That was a weird flex there. Like they're fully within their rights to do it, just that it was weird that it became a talking point. I am very bullish on the juniors we've got coming through, Craig. I think that it's among the better crops that we've had since we've been part of TCT or formed TCT. It really is, as a collective unit, a very good group, not just of one singular class, but across multiple waves here. So I think that the club need to get on top of all that, which I think is their biggest priority. So this will help in that regard, I guess. But I did see a question from who was it? Was it Joel? I think they were along the lines of because I mentioned Chris Petrus, and he was asking why Petrus isn't part of the preseason. Petrus and Bamblet, they had very heavy post flag playing schedules. They took part in the Australian schoolboys and maybe had some other schoolboy responsibilities too. In Petrus's case, I think he played through the what's it called these days? It's not GIO schoolboy still, is it? But they're also a year younger than pretty much everyone else, except maybe Fletcher. Fletcher and Ryder, maybe?
And Talangi.
Yeah, Ryder, yeah. So, I don't know. The club obviously was trying to weigh their workload up against their internal responsibilities. We know that the club rate them very highly, very highly. So, if they're not getting the preseason this year, they're certainly getting one next year. And Look, it's that sort of stuff is all mapped out. The Eels have a lot of their junior players tied down to either the end of 27 or 28 at this stage. One of the things that John and I have to be careful of at times is because we look at the amount of junior pathways football that we do and make comments on what happens in games and who's being a key contributor to the games. You have to try to balance that out with not overloading expectations on some of the younger players. But without identifying individuals, I concur with what John said in that there are players coming through at the moment individually that are some of the best that we have seen at the club, certainly since the time that TCT has been in operation. We're about to start our 11th season of coverage. Yeah, I think we're not talking Jared Haynes and Semi Radradras, but we're talking a really good group of kids. Really good. So, and like you said, a lot still happens between now and then when they get to a potential NRL debut, but the Eels are set up for a lot of internal success. And I think that for me softens a lot of the blow of the Keon Koloamatangi miss, because there still is all the internal talent and still the opportunity to see what the market spits out at you. And, we talked about last year, Dylan Walker there was no press about Dylan Walker, and then suddenly he was a Parramatta Eel. And that's the situation we now find ourselves in, is can O'Neill and Rogers and the rest of the recruitment team work some behind-the-scenes magic now? Can they go out and find a guy mid-season? And if not, can they go out and find a value add in 27? So, and the pressure is on them. There's no doubt about it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they can keep missing big signings. But as I said earlier in the podcast, there are many ways to get to your destination. And if the Eels end up being an outstanding team without making a marquee add-on, that still gives them the A+ tick at the end of the season, or whatever grade you want to give them. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, and it does suck to miss out on Galvin. It does suck to miss out on Koloamatangi. Sorry, KK. Yeah, a lot of ways to skin it. A couple of questions before we go to the break. What about Jackson Coyner? Has he been sent to the club? Can't talk about too much about Jackson Coyner just yet, Michael, but certainly not. I can tell you it's not negative. It is not negative. Take that as you will. It's
Look, I've had a little bit said to me about his preseason so far. He's not training with the NRL, so let's get that clear. That he's enjoyed the transition down to Sydney. He settled in well.
Yeah, like I said, not negative is the feedback we've gotten, which take that as you will. Phil asks, will the club re-sign Kelma? He's having a great preseason. 1 year extension last year carried him through to this season. This season? I think, end of this year. Wait and see or make the move now with the surplus of cap space. Back row is a fiercely contested position for the Eels out of nowhere. 12 months ago, we would have been saying the opposite, like who the hell will be signing to play the back row? And now here we have a glut of back rowers. There's definitely you can definitely frame a market for re-signing Kelma if you can get a more team-friendly option right now. There's also an argument to wait and see. I don't know. What do you think, Craig?
When I say this, you're going to be nodding, I'm sure, John. I think the Eels will make the decision based on the value that they believe that he brings to the team. So if his performances stack up,
I'm interested to see how high he can elevate himself this coming year, because he's got. We know that Kelma physically has all the potential in the world, and we've seen that in runs. But we've also had that, sort of oscillate. Started last season this year very poorly, and then battled hard to get back into the team, and then finished the year great. So he needs to be more like the late year Kelma than the start of the year Kelma. And fierce battle for back row spots though.
Let's just hit the nail on the head as much as we can with this, John. When Kelma has struggled, it's been in defence.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The lapses in defence are what kills him, more so than anything. His attack. It is like having. Look, I think we're both on the same page about Gideon. That the sky could be the limit with what he achieves in the game. They are not dissimilar players. It is like having there were games last year where one's on the left, one's on the right, and it was like we were able to run similar plays on both sides of the ruck. Yeah, the sledgehammer and jackhammer on either side.
Similar
player exactly.
On both sides of the ruck.
Okay, last couple of questions. I roll these two into one. Patrick was asking us who we recruit for the outside backs. You sort of touched on that too, but that also goes into Gallagher offering a bloke that I think is an outstanding fit in Jackson Purdue. And we do have a sudden reservoir of excess funds. If Purdue would be content with playing centre and maybe getting a crack at playing 5/8, depending on the internal situation, I'd be all for Purdue. I feel like his probably best position is centre. And Gallagher, I'm with you, right? Exactly. Centre with a view of 6 if he's good enough. Yeah, I agree. Gallagher saying about 750 is the market he'd give him, or the market that would get him here to Parramatta. Expensive for a centre, but it's a centre that also gives you the flexibility to play some other positions too. So, I think that it's I think it should be considered a very real possibility. Very talented young player. Is anyone coming through? Sorry, go.
I was just going to say with someone like him, I think his talent's undeniable. 750 would be paying him on promise, on potential. Right now, I'm talking about right now. It would be paying him on potential.
Yeah, you're not getting any
it comes
extra value out of the deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so it comes down to what you think his ceiling is likely to be. I think he'll be an Origin player. So if you need to pay Origin money to get him, then so be it.
That's what the market says.
Again, it comes with that caveat that you could make a mistake because you're very much paying on potential. That sort of money for someone with his experience.
And then Patrick asks, is there anyone coming through that can do the gap in the outside backs? And again, you sort of mentioned this in the podcast, but the ones that really watch from a pending health and availability, Will's younger brother, Richard Penasini, this is a big year for him to prove that he belongs in the first grade level of the Parramatta Eels. His running mate, Araz Namba.
He had his best week of the preseason in the week before Christmas, right? And he needs to continue that after Christmas.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what I'll
take
say
that all the way through
Richie.
to the trials. He needs to just stack up good football reps. That is the big thing for him. His running mate, Araz Namba, made a big climb through the ranks this year. Big, powerful centre down the left edge. Really
smoky, genuine smoky, John.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people out there that watch lower grades of Parramatta who have put his name down for most of last season. That he was like, I mean, you could probably go back to 24 with some of his performances. He's just kept getting a little bit better each season.
Yeah, and he made a big jump this year. Big jump this year in Reggie's. Was a fixture on the left edge. Did not look out of place among the grown men in that grade. And if anything, he started dominating physically. So did really well this year.
Yeah, he surprised me. He surprised me a number of occasions, John, where he stood up his opposite and got around them with pace. He's got the size that you've spoken about. Where he has to learn is like all players who are coming through, he has to get better defensively.
Yeah, that's 99.9% of young players, really, isn't it? There are very few that come through defensively primed. Every now and then you get one, a special one, but it is the most demanding part of making that jump from juniors to
Dylan Brown.
Like I said, Dylan Brown was the one in 1,000, really. Yeah, and some nice little tack-ons there from chat. Both Joel and Gallagher like Namba too. They think that he's ahead of Penasini in their depth charts. I don't think that's an unfair opinion to have. And then Neil Ross taxed on that.
Right now, yes.
Yeah, well, we
now.
always talk about your best ability is your availability. Araz has been available, has stacked those reps that we talked about. Stacking quality reps is huge for getting a look in. And then Neil Ross points out he plays left edge, and that is important because Sean Russell is leaving. So left edge is where you got to fill that vacancy. Good timing there. And then Alan Jones, last question before we get into the second half of the podcast. And this one's pertinent too because we have missed out on Keon Koloamatangi. So do we believe that Big Nelson coming on board is now not out of the question now? Eels sort of, I wouldn't say they distanced themselves from Big Naz, but there was never any official overture made. There was maybe some unofficial connections here and there, but I think the Eels were pretty definitive that they hadn't made an offer of any capacity. Does that change with Keon Koloamatangi going to the Dragons? But again, Naz was also, I presume, a short-term deal for 2026. So
yeah.
Has Keon changed anything there?
No, I don't think so. That's me. I'm not the coach.
Paul does want him. I feel that, mate. I don't disagree. Riles put a lot of effort into resculpting the forward pack in a different direction athletically, and Naz feels like a step back towards real old school BA ball in that regard when Brad was trying to dominate the middle, north and south. Neil asked he signed a boxing contract, right? I think you might be right. And Phil points out he wants to take a step into the ring with Gal. So I maybe we do sign him. Who knows? But I would be surprised. Okay. On that note, let's move on to the second half of the podcast. There's only one real topic to talk about, and I'll get there shortly because we've got, of course, the intermission first. And for those of you that have got the keen eyes, can see I'm repping my Seattle Seahawks tonight. 13-3, Craig, number 1 seed in the NFC with 1 week left in the regular season. Next week's a winner-takes-all seeding against their divisional rivals, the San Francisco 49ers. So all to play for next week. It's a big time of year. But on that note, we're going for some Seattle grunge. To pay homage to my Seahawks and a bit of what's the one with they're not picking because I had a list. It was Pearl Jam, I'm pretty certain. I think it's Pearl Jam. Let's find out. Yeah, I'm still alive. There we go. bit of Seattle grunge. It was between this and Spoon Man, which unfortunately in Australia has different connotations when it comes to sports, because Spoon Man, another classic in the grunge scene, and the Seahawks have a fantastic cornerback called Devon Witherspoon, which would have been the perfect tie-in, but being a Spoon Man in Australia has all sorts of negative connotations when it comes to rugby league. So, a bit of Pearl Jam alive, Seahawks still alive, and they're looking to get the week off in the first week of the finals.
John, again, you've named two of my favourite Pearl Jam songs there, no doubt. But Eddie Vedder, I don't know if you ever saw the Adam Sandler impersonation of Eddie Vedder. I mean, how did he nail that? Like,
there's good impersonations always crack me up. It's what's his name? The Saturday Night Live writer does a great John Malkovich as well. I think the dude that plays Barry. Oh God, name's killing me. But yeah, good impersonations crack me up. Phil Hill saw Pearl Jam in concert last year. Were they good, mate? One of the classic rock bands, of course, grunge/rock. It's a big time in the NFL, mate. We got 1 week to go in the regular season for the finals kickoff, and unfortunately, my division, the NFC West, where my Seahawks play, has got 3 premiership heavyweights in there, in the LA Rams, who lost the Falcons today, amusingly, and then the aforementioned 49ers. But yes, bit of Seattle grunge goes all right, and that takes us into the second half of the podcast, where really there's only one thing to talk about in the NRL news. The Christmas week went by, and we mentioned Keon Koloamatangi. Bill Hader, thank you, Jamie, to jump back to that impersonation of John Malkovich. Going back to what I was talking about, it's a quiet week in the NRL, barring the Keon Koloamatangi news, which we talked about in the Parramatta context. So the one thing that came out today was the proposed rule changes. The Rules and Competition Committee were working hard across the Christmas break, and they've spat out 4 proposed changes, a quartet of rule changes, not interpretation changes like we had this year, actual rule changes that could quite literally change the game for the Code and for the Parramatta Eels. And
mate, obviously the game's messed up. It needs that many rule changes.
In the Code's defense, some of this is actually like needed to be looked at because of the rise of concussions and injuries. Some of it, I'll say there's a bit of common sense in here, which shocks me. A bit of common sense, and then there's some diabolical stuff, like just pushing the barrel of the set restart, the 6 again, because it's their little pet brainchild. Let's go from the top.
Hey, can we go from what we like to what we don't like? I want to start on the positive, right? And I think we'd both be in agreement with this. Boosting the interchange to 6 players.
We talked about
to
it with
choose
Marco
from.
Yep.
Still only 4 of them can be used.
So it's almost like
starting with
a baby rugby union sort of bench, isn't it? With union, you've got the 7 players, and once you bring a player into the game, you can't sub them back out. In this case, you've got the way I've read it as, and Chak can agree, disagree, provide clarity. The way I read it was, coaches will now be able to carry a bench or benches, because there's 2 teams, of 6 players. But I'll still be able to play 4 per game. So it means your game day squads go from 17 to 19. Your interchanges remain capped at 8. And the way I read it is that you have the 6 players available, and once you've used 4 of your 6 players, they become locked in as your game day bench. So you've got 2 slots available to then have some greater flexibility to cover the backs, to cover your spine, to maybe take a young player and look for an opportunity to get them into the game to make a debut or develop. You've got some flexibility of how you construct your bench. And this is something that I feel really plays into the hands of the Parramatta Eels, because we've been talking about the difficulties of that bench, looking at our game day 17, our team was Tuesday 17, and how you're going to fit someone like Joash Papali'i in, who 100% deserves to be right there in the equation, but is going to be behind Mitchell Moses and Jonah Pezzett, presumably, and then you're fighting alongside Talon De Silva for that utility spot. Suddenly now you've got a backline spot on that bench that can go to Joash Papali'i. And you can wait and see how the game sort of plays out and look for an opportunity to get him in. And look, yes, this is the other point, Joel. It doesn't come without downsides. It means that picking these players takes them, or would presumably take them out of cup depending on the scheduling of a given week. There'll be some weeks where they can be the fifth and sixth man, not play, then go back to cup because the cup game is played on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you're playing on a Thursday or a Friday. But yeah, it could also take a player out of cup consideration, and that's the offset here. I am largely in favour of this, Greg. I think that this favours the Parramatta Eels. It's a step towards better player safety. And again, it opens up more avenues for coaches to out-coach each other in how they compose their benches and how they use their players off the bench and what sort of opportunity costs and risks they're willing to take in order to maybe exploit a certain flow in the game by injecting their fifth player or their sixth player at the risk of losing a middle or at the risk of not being able to use a dummy half.
Yeah, look, I get what was being said about it takes them out of New South Wales Cup. And unless it's a scenario which John explained where the Cup team plays after the NRL team and then the coach can put those players back in, yes, that is the case. And I guess it becomes also in the long term much what coaches like BA used to face, where there maybe would be certain players on the bench who would get minimal minutes, and every couple of weeks he would drop them back from being on the interchange back to New South Wales Cup to get game time up because he wasn't giving them sufficient game time in the NRL off the interchange. So that becomes another balancing act for the coaches to follow. But the thing is, it also means that those players, as a group, that NRL group expands. And what I mean by that is those players become part of the game day experience. They all participate in that game day experience. Now, maybe it's only in reality increasing it by one because you'd always have that 19th man anyway who would be there as an extra. But now you've got 18th man, not 19th man, the 18th man. Now you've got a guaranteed 19 players who have to be part of NRL match days. And they'll go through the warm-ups. They go through the dressing room together. They don't know whether they're playing or not. They might have an idea from the coach. The coach might say, look, this is where we're going, but you need, it might be unlikely that we use you. However, in this scenario, you have to be ready. So I guess it becomes interesting then from that coaching perspective, how you prepare those players. Do you prepare them all those ones on the bench with, well, you might play, you might not, or you're definitely playing unless something untoward, unforeseen happens. So that then becomes interesting man management from a psychological perspective for the coaches. But I see a positive in expanding the number of players involved in NRL match days, for like everything involved in the match day, all the preparation, all the dressing room stuff, the warm-ups, the half times, the post-game, all that sort of stuff, they're involved in it all. And if you've got players who, and we've got a few of them who are that rookie, fall into that rookie category, that could be the ideal situation for them, to expose them to all the match day, all the hype, the preps, the pressure that's there. It was said to me as an example, and I'm trying to think who the Eels coach was that did this, but he used to bring players onto the bench and he'd have no intention of using them. This is like well back in the day, right?
That was clearly on the bench. Des Hazell learned from then. Does he love to sit a player on the bench with no intention of using him?
Yeah, but this would be back in the days where you could have played under 23s or third grade and ended up on the bench for first grade, right? So he'd just have the players sitting on the bench, as would be the case with back in those days. They would have a number of players there, and they'd go for weeks and they'd never be called on to go out on the field. So they've gone through all that stuff with all the nerves and what have you, and then there comes a week where they've got full intention of using them, but they've been through all the prep, all the nerves, all that sort of stuff, so that when they finally go out there, it's less of an impact on them. And I think maybe that's going to be ideal for a lot of coaches, not just for the Eels, but for a lot of coaches who've got rookie players that they want to expose to first grade. So, look, that's my favourite rule change of the lot, because I think it does involve tactical decisions. Like, do you hold back and only use 2 or 3 different players off the interchange in the first half in case there is an injury?
Wait and see how the flow of the game happens in the second half. Yeah, this is a really a way for coaches to separate themselves tactically, and I'm all for adding layers of strategy and tactical coaching to the game, which is why, even from like just not even talking about player welfare, which is a huge jump in, I find this intriguing. I know that there'll be purists and diehards that say stop tinkering with the bloody game, but I do feel like this is a change that, again, allows the great coaches to separate themselves from the good coaches, and the good coaches separate themselves from the mid coaches. So I don't mind this.
I think this, John, this is an improvement to the game, because there is clearly a player safety.
Yeah, we're in a
there is common sense.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
common sense with this.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's common sense, and it adds that layer of tactical decisions by the coaches. There is nothing I can say about this rule change that is negative. I would stand and applaud this one, unlike a couple of the others that have been listed. So now I'll go to the next one, which I also think is a good decision. I'm suspecting you may feel it the same way. I do have a couple of questions about it, however. That is whether it's not a 7-tackle set if you drop the ball over the line in the act of scoring.
Thank God. Less 7-tackle sets.
Now,
I'm so over 7-tackle sets, mate. They're too powerful.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is going to lead to a ton of edge case interactions that are going to cause controversy. But as a general sentiment,
were they in the act of scoring?
Yes, that's the big one. Is that because you already got the whole, you can strip people in the act of scoring, but you can't when they're on the line trying to score but not scoring. This is going to fall in that category. But the general sentiment here, I do agree with. I hate teams being punished for playing positive football and then making an error and then leading to a 20-meter 7-tackle set. I'm at the point where 7-tackle sets can just piss off out of the game. They were brought in an era way back when teams thought it was smart to take the fullback out of play by kicking it dead. This is in the prime of Greg Inglis, Jared Hayne, Billy Slater, when Dugan was a relevant fullback too, and you're seeing a lot of fullbacks being taken out of the game that way. And this was the NRL's response. The 7-tackle set is far too potent. Like, you just look at the average meters gained and how much it flips field position, it's ridiculous. A 6-tackle set from the 20-meter mark would still be very strong. So I think that this is a positive step. And Michael, that's the other thing. Does this include crossfield kicks that get knocked on from?
That was going to be my next one, right?
Yeah.
What if you've got a grubber kick into the in goal? The players are chasing for the ball.
It's knocked on. Yeah.
It's knocked on.
Yeah. There are a ton of edge case situations that have to be clarified here. Is this all knock-ons? Is this something when you're possessing the ball and you knock on trying to put the ball down? Or is this
I think that has to be, I think that very much has to be clarified, because I think it has to be that, because
I agree. Wholesale.
Once you start to get into the kick, like say grounding of a kick, then you start to get into that grey area of players who are just no chance of getting to the ball, of grounding the ball, still going to reach out to, get a hand on it in some way to knock it dead.
AJ's offering a different scenario here, saying that he wants this extended to field goals in Golden Point, because you see teams fearful of making the shot at goal for giving away the 7-tackle set. I'm in the same point where a 20-meter restart for the six tackle set in Golden Point would also be very powerful for field position. So yeah, I'm not against that either, mate. I'll be entirely fine with the 7 tackles being abolished.
That's an excellent point, and I hope, AJ, if there's some way that you can get, and I know you've got the odd connection there, AJ. If there's some way that you can get that added in there in terms of like something for the rules committee and for the decision makers to consider, I think that's a critical one, because I have to agree that once you're having a genuine shot at field goal, and I'd hope it wouldn't come down to, I can't imagine anyone's just going to do like a take the fullback out of it with a drop kick sort of scenario.
Yeah.
But if you're taking a shot at field goal, yeah, let's not have fear determine tactics.
In that point, then, like, the 7 tackle set doesn't really have a place in the game. I just feel like the extra tackle was crazy. It changes the balance of set so much.
I am concerned. I don't trust coaches. I think you would get back to that scenario where teams might want to take a fullback or a winger out of the play and have a set defence line. I can just see, like, I don't have a problem with that. Maybe the simplest thing would be a ball that sails out over the dead ball line on the full.
Yeah, I mean,
where it is obvious.
That would, yeah, okay. I'm okay with that. If you get that wrong,
yeah,
okay. Paul pointing out also in chat that your season launch tickets are now available. Yeah, go to parraeels.com.au and you can get your tickets to the season launch Friday, the 30th of January. What's the venue? Smart Casuals.
It's at the stadium.
Oh, it's at the stadium. There you go. Yeah, Cumberland Lounge. There you go. The TCT Lounge. Make sure you tell everyone.
The TCT Lounge.
Make sure you tell everyone it's the TCT Lounge, by the way. And this is an 18-year-old plus event, so obviously going to be alcohol and whatnot available. And anything else there? Yeah, Smart Casual, 6:30 p.m. for 7 p.m. start. And do I dare?
Highly recommend it. If it's the same as last year, John, you get opportunity to mingle with the players. I will warn you, it's not cheap. Just click through. It's $250 a ticket, but if you have the means for it, it's a good event. So there you go. On to the Michael says he likes the 7 tackle set. It can help swing things back in your favor as well. Look, yeah, there's no doubt it can swing games. I just feel like it's everywhere right now in the game. If a ball's caught on the full, 7 tackle set. If it's a knock on in goal, 7 tackle set. If the ball rolls dead, 7 tackle set. I don't know. Just it feels too punishing for playing positive football. So Joel says he'll be there. Good man. With the old fella, yep, nice. Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic day there. Phil's going to be there as well. So, and when he says he'll be there with the old fella, he's referring to Gianni, not to his old fella.
with the legend himself. Yeah, it's always good to catch up with Gianni at the games as well. Great character.
Yeah.
Now, that's halfway through the rule changes. So that brings us to now our third, well, I'm not even going to say most liked, maybe our second most disliked rule change. This one's going to be one of the more controversial ones. And you're the one with the run sheet, but I dare say it's got something to do with the kickoff, if I had to scale these things. Or are you John, the 6 again, man?
The team that has just conceded the try gets the choice about whether they kick off or receive. Look, I guess it brings in an element of the unknown, the unexpected. What will they decide to do? But, John...
The craziest part of this rule is that it's the team that gets scored on has the option to elect to kick off or receive the ball. So it's not bringing the code in line of rugby union with NFL where the team that scores then kicks off to the opposition team. So the score flow, the possession flow, ping pongs back and forth. You're giving the team that has been scored on the option to do either. Which then I was talking to my brother about this, and you guys know Luca from the one time he filled in for Craig on the podcast. We're sort of trying to think about the thought process as to, because like right now, if you get scored on, like if this just went through, 99.9999% of the time you'd think you're just going to say, well, kick us the ball. We want the ball back. We want to possess. We want to have a chance to score. What edge case scenario would there be to kick the ball off after being scored on? And the best thing that we could come up with was time is really short. It's either scores locked or you're behind situation to win the game. And the time that could potentially be gained on a short restart relative to the field position you gain in like the 20 or 30 seconds to move the ball upfield from a kickoff, you'd gamble on that to maybe get the opportunity to win a game. Because otherwise, why are you kicking off? You want the ball.
Maybe the playing conditions, like if you're playing with a strong breeze.
Yeah, and truly diabolical like field conditions, maybe. Yeah. So you want to play the game. A really heavy track that you can feel you can pin the team down defensively.
Yeah.
And then get a kick, and regain the ball on halfway or thereabouts. Yeah.
And I guess whatever the score is, because if you've just been, let's say the team that scored is 40 points behind or something like that, they might decide that they've spent enough time down at their own end of the field, and that they want to kick off. Look, there could be any sort of scenario, but you would have to think that in the majority of cases, the team that's just been scored against would want the ball.
Yeah, would want the ball. Yeah, as I said,
unless they're leading by 40 points or something like that, as I said, and they just want to hammer.
Yeah, and AJ's pointing out, sort of analogous to what I was talking about, teams that have the outstanding aerial threats like Coates, Mark Nwanganidawaze in the case of his Roosters, Jacob Kiraz, guys that are high ball specialists. Yeah, maybe you go for the short kickoff there. This is quite deliberately a rule that's trying to address the huge gluts of momentum you get in games when a team can go in and score 1, 2, 3 tries on either in a row or close enough, so that the team that's getting scored on have a chance to answer back. Look, I'd argue it's probably a more balanced outlook, like having the team that gets scored on have a chance to answer back. But it is quintessentially rugby league to have the team that's scored get the ball back and continue to try and press the advantage. I don't know. This is one I think it's very polarizing. I think people will. Phil saying nothing off the current kickoff rule, and that's the thing of rugby league. It is rugby league. So while I think that if you're talking about like a games design perspective and sort of you're getting real nerdy here, from a balance perspective in terms of like a board game or a computer game, I think that getting kicked 2 after you've been scored on is a much better balancing mechanism. Again, sometimes games don't need to be perfectly balanced, and having asymmetry or little imbalances are part of what the charm or the beauty of a game. And in rugby league's case, you could argue that it's been this way for over 100 years and has worked pretty well for over 100 years. And yeah, sometimes there's a blowout because of it, but also on the other side of it, get good. On the defensive side of it, make a tackle. Force a kick. The Eels are certainly won the worst of it at times when it comes to getting tries scored on us. And then Joel's asking anyone follow Union closely. Because you want to win like Big Mark. Yeah, okay, I see where you're going with that one. That was a 2-parter. I missed the first one. Yeah, that's a fair shout there. Yeah, and like I can understand if you're on the pro side of this, on the rule change. What really surprised me about this rule is that they're making it an elected option. Like the ability to say we want to kick or receive, that is something that no code does, which is kind of crazy. So, yeah, I'm happy for this one to stay as it is, Craig, but I could see some coaches pushing for this to change. Coaches that hate momentum being taken away from their team. And I could see this one maybe not passing, but maybe getting more votes than you'd expect, because this is being put to the clubs and the RLPA.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this fits into the, if it ain't broke, why do you want to fiddle with the rules? It just feels like this is one of those, like, why are you doing this?
Phil asked, will these also come into the NRLW?
It's not extreme hate. Extreme hate is not my reaction.
The next one might be extreme hate.
Why are you doing it? Why?
Phil asks, will these rules also come into the NRLW? I would imagine so. In the past, we've seen a lag between the NRLW and the NRL with some of the interpretations. But in this case, I agree it has to. Final rule change. This is the big one. This is the one that I can't imagine anyone is on side with. And this, like I said, this speaks towards the six again, the set restart being their little brainchild, like their little baby that they're really trying to invest in. Set restarts instead of penalties. This is under the subtitle penalty zone. Set restarts instead of penalties will be awarded from outside the 20-meter line of the attacking team, so your own red zone, your 20-meter danger zone. This is designed to speed play up. Full penalties will still be awarded inside the 20-meter mark. This season, penalties were awarded inside the 40-meter mark. Set restarts were introduced in 2020 but tweaked in 2022, where penalties were awarded inside the 40-meter zone for the team in possession. Yeah. I don't like this one, mate. The code needs less set restarts, not more. Now we're getting more. We're getting a whole lot more. And then this now opens up less penalties for shots at goal because 80% of the field is now deemed to be set restart territory. I cannot see this as anything but someone trying to push the barrow for the set restarts. Like they're carrying the buckets for the set restart here. Hey, the BJ Army podcast there. Good to see you, mate. Glad to have you on board. We've talked about a fair few things with the Eels tonight. We're just talking about the rule changes or the proposed rule changes now. And this last one, the penalty zone, I detest. I hate it. I hate it, mate. I'm at the point. I said I don't want 7 tackle sets in the game. I don't want set restarts in the game even more. And if you're gonna, and I've argued this before, Craig. If you're gonna have the set restart, I am now at the point where just make it a short arm penalty, union style, means that there is a micro stoppage in play, but you're still getting a flow of possession, and teams can't kick for touch, they can't advance the ball, can't go for goal, but they get a full reset the tackle count, and the game is only minimally disrupted. But there's not this absurd flow where they call a set restart and players like, what the hell was that for? And, a set restart then leads to another penalty that leads to a sin bin because by the time you've blinked, players just gone 30 metres downfield and is out of control.
John, I hated the concept of the set restart when it was first introduced in the COVID interrupted year, when the competition restarted and it restarted with this rule change that was there. And then I thought, well, they've reeled it back when they extended the penalties out to the 40-metre zone, because what do you know, coaches look to take full advantage of a situation where you could get a set restart following a kick downfield. So you chase, you hold the player down on that first tackle, you wait till you got a set line. What do you know? They blow an early tackle 6 again in the red zone, and the team that's done the kick chase had that advantage of being able to put full defence line pressure onto the team then in possession and make it hard for them to get out of their red zone. And of course they then extended that to go out to the 40 metres because, well, that's basically the yardage work that teams were having to do after a kick out to that 40 metres. So when they rolled that back, they didn't roll it back far enough as far as I was concerned, but at least they rolled it back and it was like they put up their hand and said, maybe we've got this rule wrong. We like the concept of it. Let's see if we can make it work with the 40-metre line as a barrier between penalties and 6 against. But here's my problem with set restarts, John. Set restarts are like the old scrum penalty. You could blow the pee out of the whistle for any friggin' reason, and no one can argue against the ref.
Yep.
If the ref can just go carte blanche on picking on a team for something that they're doing that they don't like, and just like the old scrum penalty where you could blow your whistle a ref could blow their whistle for anything in the old scrum penalties, a loose arm, legs across the scrum, striking early.
The same thing's still true in rugby union.
Row, not binding correctly.
Yep.
Like a whole collapsing the
collapsing's
scrum.
a classic.
halfback not retiring, breaking early. Like the list just goes on and on and on, right? And nothing could ever be argued because most scrums would collapse in a screaming heap. And it'd be like the scrum's this mess, or the scrum comes together and then you hear the ref blows the whistle and you see what hands he got the whistle in, because then you knew the other arm
was going that way, yeah.
Right? So, and you were waiting to see what on earth he found there. And then it might be, like, for example, collapsing the scrum, and then you watch the players in the scrum get out. And, of course, how many times you saw the team that received the penalty were the last ones to get up from the ground, where it looked like, well, maybe they were the ones that collapsed the scrum. Who knows? Who could argue with it, right? And it's the same as you said, for the set restarts.
Because the way that the rucks work with the wrestle.
What the hell was that for?
Yeah.
We're going, and in the stands, we're going, what the hell was that for? There's no, you can't do a captain's challenge on a 6 again call. Now, up to that 40-metre line, if a penalty was blown, depending what the penalty was for, at least you'd have an opportunity that you could put in a captain's challenge, because it's stoppage. There's no stoppage with a set restart. If the refs got it wrong, there is no comeback against a wrong decision there. Like as I said, that is just the opportunity for them to make a call without question. And the number of times that you see one team apparently doing something all game and the other team being the ones that get pulled up for it.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. We need less frustration in the game from referees, not more. And I'm not blaming referees for this. I think they're being set up for failure.
We've spoken about this at length. Is that the speed?
Make human errors.
Exactly. And then to be left to hang out to dry without support from the code necessarily. Agreed. Phil Eels,
and John, just while I'm at it, we're critical with refs from time to time, but can I just put it out there as well that the game needs referees. I was communicating with the Parramatta Referees Association recently, and they really are in need of young people to get involved as referees in the game. So anyone that's out there, or if you've got family that love rugby league and maybe a career as a player isn't going to be what your son or daughter will be able to achieve, but maybe as a match official it is. And I know it's a thankless task, but it is a genuine career option for people who love the game. If you're out in the Parramatta district, talk to the Parramatta Referees Association. They're looking for referees. We don't have a game without referees. And there is a career path there to professional officiating. So just putting it out there. As I said, as much as we will get critical about referees with performances, we also know we don't have a game without them. And in this instance, with these rules, what we're basically saying is, why make the referee's job harder?
Yeah. Agreed. On that note, Phil Eels' bugbear is the strip, Craig. He wants the strip rule to be tidied up with the different interpretations we get from incidents, especially when it goes to the bunker. Yeah. I know there's an art to it, but the fadeaway strip or the peel away strip is a real grey area in the game right now. I don't know. It's definitely a place that could be tidied up. I like the idea of a strip, putting more onus on the ball carrier for security and then giving the defense a chance to make a hugely influential play. But you get some real head scratches about the inconsistencies of playing at the ball, don't you, Craig? Like sometimes the bunker's like, they're not looking at the ball, they're not playing at the ball, it's a lost ball, blah, 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 or it's just, incidental contact in the tackle lost. And then you got other times like, you can see the guy's not looking at the ball, they're clearly making a raking motion when they're just trying to secure the ball or trying to grab a player, they've played the ball, it's a penalty. Then that's the problem with interpretive stuff.
John, you know what? I'll tell you what the simplest way of clearing all of that up is. And it doesn't help those situations where it's a player might just be making a tackle and they're penalised for it. But if you've got 2 in the tackle and the ball comes free, and it doesn't matter whether someone's peeled off, if there's been 2 in the tackle, then you can't strip the ball.
Yeah, limit to a true one-on-one.
Yeah, because look, there is not enough one-on-one tackles in the game as it is. Right? So if you want the big play, if you want that big moment with that turnover of possession that you've instigated as a result of a tackle, and you're not going for that, that great tackle that you see under the ribs that hits that ball and jolts it free, right? But if you're looking for a big, unexpected play, if you can pull that off one-on-one, then that's what needs to be rewarded. Much in the same way as I hate it when a player makes a great one-on-one tackle, especially around the legs, and the referee straight onto them to clear the ruck.
Yeah.
Right? I don't understand why you get more time to clear the ruck when there's 2 or 3 players in the tackle. And that might be a logistical thing of, okay, it takes a bit longer for 2 or 3 players to peel off. But I think if you make a one-on-one tackle, you've actually made a dominant tackle because you brought a player down on your own. You should have that time to get up and get into the marker position. I think you deserve that time to get into the marker position, provided you don't stretch it a bit too much, but it shouldn't be a case of immediately roll away and the player can play the ball. I think you deserve time to be able to get yourself into the marker position.
Agreed.
And I feel the same way about the strip. And this, as I said, the simplest way is if you've got 2 players at any stage, 2 or more players at any stage, then there can't be a strip in the tackle. Hey, then it's all cleared up, rather than those stop frames of when did the second player let go.
Deriving intent as well, yeah. And then last one, Patrick and the BJ podcast, both in agreements here. Agreement, sorry. They don't like the short dropout. The short dropout, I think, it's so prevalent now that people are getting tired of it. But it's a relatively fair mechanism, except for the change. What I'll say is that the change to the we hated the change when it came about, but the allowance given for not getting range right and kicking it out and not being penalised. Yeah. And that was obviously brought in to incentivize competing for the ball. They wanted more attacking football in that regard. I never liked it. I'm completely fine with the short dropout, the short kickoff, but on the provision that you get it right. Like, it is a high-risk manoeuvre and should be treated as such, and you should not be, I wouldn't say rewarded because the opposition still get the ball back, but the penalty from in front was a fair outcome. Or the penalty on halfway was a fair outcome relative to it being a short dropout or a short kickoff. I think that's what's really tilted the balance or the feel of the balance away from it. It worked. Teams going for encouraging aggressive football without the ball is great, and kicking the ball short every time. I know the Walker brothers, tried to revolutionise it in the Q Cup years back. I don't think you can do it every play, and even in the case of dropouts, where I think you can do it almost every play, there are still situations where it is prudent to kick it long, or use the long kick as a mix up to catch them lacking because they think it's going short and getting a 70-80 metre kick. But what has really caused the umbrage from fans is the fact that you're seeing teams kick it like freaking 15 metres into the crowd, and it's being deemed that it was a catchable ball. And it's like, come on, let's not kid ourselves.
It's the lack of consistency along those calls as well, John, because sometimes you see where a team where someone's gone for that, and it's for whatever reason they've called a penalty instead, and you go, hang on, how is that not a contestable ball? They've tried for that.
Yeah, Neil agrees. Yeah, he says the short kickoffs are okay, but go back to having it properly punished. Agreed. The risk to reward is what made the concept so good. It's like, okay, let's go get the ball back after having to defend our goal line for 3 sets. Let's make a play. But if we get it wrong, they're going to get an easy kick, a goal, or a tap restart in front of the posts. But
absolutely.
I didn't like the change that when they brought it in, the contestable wall change. I thought that it was a joke, and then, like you said, it's been used from not just the NRL and lower grades, it's been officiated so inconsistently. Like the Eels have copped some rough calls, other teams have copped some rough calls about what's been deemed to be contestable or not. So yeah, go back to making it a penalty if you get it wrong, and it's much better for the balance of play. And on that note, I think that's about it for the NRL, mate. I just had a double check there. I don't see any breaking news, so bear with me. Make sure I'm not telling you fibs. Yeah, it looks like that's about it. The rule changes are the biggest news piece of the. Well, there is the Tongan the Tongan Rugby League president's now Prime Minister apparently, so well done to him. But that's about it.
Well, look, we have an hour and 46 minutes
of bullshitting. Yep, with not much news to talk about. That's classic TCT.
So we thank everyone that's tuned into the live. We thank everyone that's tuned into the live podcast tonight. We really appreciate your continuing support. Also, Happy New Year to anyone that's listening to this on delay and end up listening after New Year's. Don't forget our podcasts that are up there with Mark O'Neill and also Richard Fodor and Darren Adam. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course, the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club. And John, thank you. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels. I've got to fly, mate.
Okay. Catch you, mate.
See ya.